And I want to read you the editorial from a socialist magazine written in 1955, and I think you'll understand why when I'm done reading it, and then just take two minutes to wrap up after that. The editorial from a magazine called the American Socialist reads, "Much violence has calloused our sensibilities in this day and age. Yet there is something about the murder of Emmet Till to touch even the coldest heart. The thought that in this America, full-grown and brawny men would abduct a grade school child and beat him in his helplessness until all his teeth were out, his head caved in, his body mutilated with horrible wounds, put a bullet into his brain, and drop him into a river, truly even the most emotionally impervious cannot fail to be aroused. In a decaying social order, man's inhumanity to man includes man's inhumanity to children. And the children, even in their years of hope and lightheartedness, are forced to taste the bitter fruits of knowledge. During the Second World War, one of those public school essay contests in which children are asked to write answers to usually fatuous questions was held, the question being, how would you punish Hitler for his crimes? On one paper written by a little black girl, the answer was startling. Quote, "I would put him in a black skin and force him to spend the rest of his life in these United States." Here was a pathetic early wisdom, and Emmet Till also, in his final hour, knew more about our Southland and the desperate forces at work in it than any college of sociologists. May we be granted the power to build a world in which our children will be spared such lessons. Now, I think that that's as powerful now as it was at the time, and I want to close my part of this discussion by simply adding one, I think, very important point. Southland exists north and south. Southland, as the editorial referred to, did not end. And the old Jim Crow did not end because of the actions of a few far-sighted politicians. The old Jim Crow was challenged and broken in the South because masses of people refused any longer to take the Jim Crow as it was. The movement that began to change this entire country, that is the civil rights movement into the black power movement, came to a conclusion that it was insufficient to desegregate without challenging the economic control that exists. That was the conclusion Malcolm X came to. That was the conclusion that Dr. Martin Luther King came to, which is why he went from being the person that was loved in the North until he went north and said, but the same stuff happens. He said, I don't remember him ever saying the same stuff. He was somewhat more eloquent. The same thing that happens in the South happens in the North. He added, which is why I'm against the war and wars, and he came out against the Vietnam War and was attacked by that day's liberals, was pilloried in the press, and added a third thing. We now have to talk about economic justice and poverty, which is why when he was shot dead, the reason he was in Memphis was to support the sanitation workers' struggles. The lessons, I think, for us are pretty clear. The new Jim Crow won't be challenged until we do the challenging, until we tie together the economic questions, the questions of wars abroad, and the questions of racial justice. Thank you.